When you think of North Atlantic Treaty Organization, you probably imagine armies, tanks, and fighter jets. But behind the scenes, NATO runs on information. And not all information is equal. To protect its most critical secrets, the alliance uses a strict security system. Today, let's break down every secrecy level in NATO, from the lowest restrictions to the top secret nuclear files. NATO has four main levels of classified information: Cosmic Top Secret, NATO Secret, NATO Confidential, and NATO Restricted. There's also something called NATO Unclassified, which isn't technically secret, but it's still official NATO information with some limits on how it can be shared. Here's how NATO decides which label to use. Cosmic Top Secret, if leaking it would cause exceptionally grave damage to NATO. NATO Secret, if it would cause serious damage. NATO Confidential, if it would simply damage NATO's interests. NATO Restricted, if it could harm the effectiveness or efficiency of the alliance. That scale of damage is the backbone of the classification system. NATO doesn't choose its security labels randomly. Each level is tied to the scale of damage a leak could cause. Cosmic Top Secret, the highest mark. If this information got out, it could cause exceptionally grave damage to NATO, endangering lives, operations, or the very stability of the alliance. NATO Secret, one step down, but still critical. A leak here would bring serious damage, exposing strategies or undermining key missions. NATO Confidential, important but less explosive. Disclosure would still damage NATO's interests, eroding trust or weakening its position. NATO Restricted, the lowest tier, yet it matters. Even this information, if revealed, could harm effectiveness or efficiency, slowing down cooperation inside the alliance. Together, these levels form a sliding scale, from reduced efficiency at the bottom to catastrophic consequences at the top. That logic, matching protection to the potential harm, is the backbone of NATO's classification system. Then there's NATO Unclassified. Now, this one can sound confusing, because the word unclassified makes people think it's public. But that's not quite true. NATO Unclassified is not secret, but it's still official NATO information. Think of it like for official use only. You'll find it on routine documents, meeting notes, training materials, or reports that don't meet the criteria for confidential or higher. But here's the key. Even though it isn't classified, it doesn't mean free to share with anyone. NATO adds dissemination tags, like NATO only, which means it must stay inside the alliance or releasable to the public if it's cleared for open release. So NATO Unclassified is basically the baseline category. It covers information that's safe enough not to need secrecy stamps, but important enough to still be controlled. On top of the normal NATO levels, there's a special category called ATOMOL. This kicks in when the United States or the United Kingdom share nuclear-related information with NATO. Things like warhead designs, nuclear storage sites, or operational deployment plans. When that happens, the document carries a dual label, like CTSATOMAL, NSATOMAL, or NCATOMAL. It's basically saying, this is classified under NATO rules, but with an extra layer of nuclear safeguards on top. Handling ATOMOL information is much stricter. It can only be stored in specially approved facilities, and only personnel with both the proper NATO clearance and explicit ATOMOL authorization can see it. Now, how do you actually get access to this stuff? First, there's the golden rule, the need-to-know principle. Even if you have a high clearance, you don't automatically get to see everything. You only see what you genuinely need for your job. For the bigger levels, confidential, secret, and cosmic top secret, you need a formal background check and a personnel security clearance. That means your reliability, loyalty, and trustworthiness are vetted before you're allowed anywhere near sensitive material. But here's the twist. For NATO Restricted, you don't need a formal clearance. Instead, you just have to be trusted by your organization, receive proper security training, and be officially authorized. In other words, the bar is lower, but it's still not open to anyone. Even at this level, you can't just walk out and post it online. it's still controlled information. Every NATO document is clearly stamped with its classification level, both at the top and bottom of every page. So you'll see big, bold marks like Cosmic Top Secret or NATO Secret. Sometimes even individual paragraphs are tagged, so readers know which parts are classified at which level. Colored covers or header sheets are often used for the highest levels, making it impossible to mistake the sensitivity of the file. And when documents are copied or moved, every single page has to keep those markings intact, so the classification always follows the information. If you're familiar with the US classification system, the NATO levels line up pretty closely. Cosmic Top Secret is the NATO equivalent of Top Secret. NATO Secret matches Secret, and NATO Confidential lines up with Confidential. But here's where NATO is different. It also has restricted and unclassified layers. The US doesn't really use those categories in the same formal way. The closest American label would be for official use only or controlled unclassified information. So while the top 3 levels look the same, NATO's system is a little broader, giving it extra room to manage information that isn't truly secret, but still needs careful handling. So, to recap, NATO's secrecy ladder goes step by step: restricted, confidential, secret, cosmic top secret, with special ATOMOL rules sitting on top for nuclear material. It might sound like just bureaucracy, but this system is what allows 30 different nations to share intelligence, plan joint missions, and coordinate defenses without risking catastrophic leaks. In a world of cyber attacks, espionage, and information warfare, keeping secrets safe is just as important as tanks or fighter jets. And that's why NATO's classification system isn't just paperwork. It's one of the invisible shields that holds the alliance together. If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and check out more Explained videos. There's plenty more to uncover.